Turn your living room into a joyful, hands-free playroom with CoComelon Sing and Play with JJ. Your child sings, moves, and learns right alongside JJ and friends, all on the big screen. It's designed thoughtfully to spark speech, rhythm, and coordination through songs and active play. Try an ad-free, safe, and interactive way to make screen time part of their learning and growth. Parents love how easy it is, voice-controlled and frustration-free. Kids love every moment of singing, laughing, and playing along. It's fun for them, and it's feel-good for you. Available now in the Volley app on your smart TV. Just search Volley in your TV's app store and start your free trial of CoComelon Sing and Play with JJ today. That's CoComelon Sing and Play with JJ. Available now in the Volley app on your smart TV. Search Volley and start your free trial today.
Volley. Welcome to Homeschooling Outside the Box, the podcast that encourages and equips moms to homeschool an outside-the-box child. Hey there, I'm Cindy Renna. Thanks so much for listening. Today we are going to talk about record keeping. If you are listening to this sometime at the end of May, you are probably ending your school year. And the end of the school year, whether you homeschool or not, means memories and traditions and lots of paper, especially when your child has some sort of special need like autism or ADHD. This paperwork can really pile up, and it can become really overwhelming for any parent, just with a typical child. But again, when you've got a child with all that extra paper, including therapists or if your child is in school, if you have, IEP meetings or things like that, it can be really daunting. So today I want to share with you the way that we keep records, and it took me a long time to sort of figure out what worked for us. We tried a lot of different things. So as of 2020, when I'm recording this is what is working for us. Oh, real quick, before I tell you what's working for us, if you would rather be reading this, I'm going to link in the show notes to a blog post I wrote a few years ago that this podcast is based on. Some of the things you'll notice are slightly different, but the bones of it are pretty much the same. So again, if you would rather read it, I'll link to that and you can read it at a later time as well. Okay, so I divide our paperwork into 4 categories. 1, the memory box. 2, grades and attendance. 3, work examples. And 4, the therapy paper trail. So let's break all of those down a little bit. The first one, the memory box. So this is pretty self-explanatory. This is going to be things that you might enjoy looking at, when your child graduates or gets big or leaves the house or whatever, or that your child might enjoy looking back at. I know at the end of the school year when I'm packing stuff up, my kids love to go back through their old stuff. So that's essentially what this is. This is not something you're going to need for transcripts. Nobody else is going to care to see this except your family. So you can do as much or of little as this as you want. I keep a folder on each child's shelf. We've got one of those great cube shelves from IKEA. And each child has their own cube. And all year, I keep a folder on each child's shelf that is just for free work. So this is going to be a great drawing that they do, or a painting, or a little story that they write, or something like that. Now, before it goes into the folder, I'll tell you, it's a process. So a child creates something. I say, oh my goodness, that's so great. And then we've got this area in the house where I've got just a piece of like twine and some little tiny clothespins. And each child has a little slot. They're not marked or anything, but there's enough clothespins that each child can have something hanging at the same time. And then that piece of art gets its 15 minutes of fame. And I put it up there, and it stays there until the child creates another wonderful piece of artwork that I want to swap it out for. And then the new one goes up. So the old one, if I really feel like man, this was a great job, or it's good to mark like their abilities at this age, or this is memorable and they'll want to keep it, then it goes into the folder. If it's just something kind of silly, then I appreciate the process and I throw it into the recycling bin, which is in the same room. Now, this is key, moms. This is going to get you out of a lot of messes. So I keep it in that bin until the next trash day. And the reason being, if your little child comes up to you and says, hey, where's that picture of the dog that I made? You can quickly go to the recycling bin and say, oh, here, it's right here. I'm sorry, I didn't realize you wanted to keep that. 95% of the time, maybe even 99% of the time, nobody asks about them. It's more of enjoying the process. They wanted to paint something. Not every work is a work of art. It's more about the process than the end result. So lots and lots of their papers end up in the recycling bin. In order to make it to the folder, it's got to be a pretty good paper. So that one folder will last us all year. And so then at the end of the school year, I just take that folder and I stick it in their memory box. And I also have a birthday binder. So this is all in the memory box. And in the birthday binder is a recent or a yearly picture. I take a picture of them each school year and blow it up to an 8x10 and we hang it up in the hallway. After that year, we take it down. I put that on one side. I put their little birthday interview that they do at their birthdays. It's the same interview every year. We ask the same questions. I can link to that in the show notes. I did not create it. It's a great thing to do, though, because then you can see how your child's grown. And I put the picture on the front. I put the interview on the back, and I laminate it. And you can't run it through a hot laminator because it's a photo. So I don't know, maybe you can. I've never tried it. You might be able to. Do it at your own risk. But what I usually do is put it through the self-seal laminator pocket, and then I 3-hole punch it, and I stick it in the binder. And that is it for their year of memories. They get their picture, their interview, and then that folder of stuff they created. Any other significant life event is going to either end up in the work box, which I'm going to talk about next. Like if they finish their math book, a certificate that says they completed, that's going to go in a different box. Any super big life event, like let's say you have a Boy Scout and he ranked up to the next level. Well, those are going to involve pictures, and that is going to end up in our family photo book. I do one a term, or one a season. So there'll be a spring photo book from this year, and it'll be all the important things that happen in our family just for spring. So again, any, swimming competitions, or if your child's in a play or anything like that, those things are going to end up in there. You could put, again, going back to the play, you could put a ticket stub or whatever. I guess you could make like a scrapbook page and stick it in the memory box or in the binder behind. But the goal is to really be minimal, because here's the thing. You want to think about the end, okay? Begin with the end in mind. What is going to happen to this stuff when your child goes to college or gets married or has their own kids? I know I might break some hearts here. They're probably not going to want most of it, or they're at least not going to want as much of it as you think they're going to want. You might want to keep that, and that's fine. But just know, if you're wanting to hand them these huge boxes of their childhood, that might not be the best way to go at this. So what you might want to do is really condense things down to a binder or a box that you can hand them when they move out and say, here's some childhood memories if you'd like to hang on to them. And just give them something small that they can look back on if they choose to. So that is the memory box. And you can they have little file boxes that you can, do it by year, by file. You can do the accordion files. That would fill up pretty quickly. But those are some other options. But for us, we tried lots of different things. We did the file boxes. What it all comes down to for us is having the birthday binder and then having a stack of their folders. And if you think of that at the end of 18 years, that's really only going to fill a small box. I mean, that's going to be really portable, and it's going to be a nice condensed gift, and it's not going to take up a ton of space in your house, and it's really going to help you choose what is worth putting in there. So that's what we do for Memory Box. Moving on to grades and attendance. So depending on where you live, what state you're in, you will have different requirements from your state. Where we live, I do not have to report to the school board. I don't have to turn anything in. We don't even have to have a cover. So I don't have anybody that I have to show attendance or grades to. However, that being said, I think it is extremely risky to not keep track of this stuff just on your own. I think it is wise, whether you have to turn these things in or not, to just jot these things down. It's not a real time-consuming thing, and it's just good to have. Even if after your child graduates and his transcript is done, you end up throwing all this in the fire pit, and that's fine. But it's good to have just in case you need it. So the way the grades and attendance folder looks is it's just a duotang folder, or you could also get a binder if you would rather have a binder. But I have one for each child. And my kids were in school for a couple of years, so I have their report cards. I did not save all the progress reports. I just saved each report card from that year, and I just 3-hole punch it and I stick it in. Any attendance sheets. So you want to keep attendance throughout the school year, that you homeschool, and just, you can do that lots of different ways, but it's so easy to just print a calendar off Google and just highlight the date when you've done school. And again, depending on what state you live in, doing school for the day can mean different things. So you want to make sure that you're following state laws wherever you live, whatever that means. But if you don't have any regulations, you want to mark days that it's a moral decision. Did you really do school? Or did you let them watch PBS Kids all day and you read them a bedtime story? Like, is that going to count as a school day or is it not? And that's up to you. But when you mark your days, make sure you're marking a school day. If you do any standardized tests, that would go in there. We've done one called the California Achievement Test, and that was really great, really simple. We do not test every year. We certainly don't test multiple times a year. Maybe around 5th grade, it's good to kind of touch base and know where your child's at. That if you're going to do that, you can keep the test scores in this folder. Also, if your child was in school and you are withdrawing them from school, and if you're quarantine homeschooling right now and you have fallen in love with homeschool, yay, and you're going to keep homeschooling, you do have to withdraw your child formally from school. And so, again, that depends state to state, but a quick visit to the Homeschool Legal Defense Association's website, otherwise known as HSLDA, you can look up a withdrawal sheet and print one off, and this is something that you can turn into whoever you need to turn it into, the school board or the main office. It depends, again, on where you live. So I'm going to link to that in the show notes. I'll try to get you the direct link to the withdrawal slip. Also, if you are going to do a cover school or a co-op, you probably want to put your registration information in there. Try to get it to just a couple pages just to say, hey, this is the cover school we used this year, proof of payment, proof of participation, whatever it is. So just maybe 1 or 2 pages. So again, this grades and attendance folder is very small. You should be able to fit your child's whole education in a duotang folder. And this is going to be more about transcripts, and just in case, heaven forbid, you have a nosy neighbor who doesn't like you and tries to say that you're not really homeschooling, and if for some reason you ever need to prove yourself, this is going to be a great gift. The third category, work examples. So again, This is one of those things that depending on where you live, depending on what you're required to show, you probably don't need very much in this category. This is probably something that, you may use to write transcripts when the time comes and your child is going to graduate, or it might just provide a very nice bonfire for you at the end of your child's education. But either way, it's better to have it and not need it than need it and not have it. So, work examples. You can keep the whole workbook if your child is using a workbook. So, we're Charlotte Mason homeschoolers, so workbooks aren't a huge thing for us, but we do have our handwriting workbooks that we do hang on to those, and that's just a nice example of their writing. To be honest, a lot of the reason I keep it is to show other moms when they're looking at different curriculum. I can say, oh, well, this is what year 2 looks like for this curriculum. I can pull it back out and show it to somebody else. That's more of the reason I keep it. But many workbooks have at the end of them a certificate of completion. So I know Matthew C is one that we use, and they've got one in the back, and all about spelling, all about reading. They have that certificate of completion. So I always save that. You also might want to save maybe like the final math test. Same with science. When you get into the higher sciences, you can save a few of the key things. If this overwhelms you and you feel like, I don't know, what if I save the wrong thing? Just save the whole workbook. And then at the end of each year, when you're putting your things away, go back through everything. And I'll bet as you thumb back through some of these things, you think, why did I save that? And it'll end up in the burn pile. So it's better to save, something just that you're not sure, just in case, and you can get rid of it later. Also, completed nature books. So like I said, we do the Charlotte Mason method, and part of Charlotte Mason is narration. So when the kids are little, that is all done orally. So there's no paper trail with that. Now, as the children get older, maybe 10 or so, and they're able to write out their answers, instead of narrating back orally, they're going to do that on paper. So I also keep a duotang folder for all of our group work. And what goes in this is any written narrations. And just if you don't know what a written narration looks like, let me give you an example. So let's say for history, the reading that we did today was on Benjamin Franklin and the kite. Let's go with that famous story. So I would say, if it was a day that the children had to do a narration, I would say, please write about Benjamin Franklin and his kite. And then depending on how old they are, you're going to level it up or down based on the sophistication of the answer. It can get more difficult or it can get easier. So for a little one who's just starting to do written narration, you might say, tell about Benjamin Franklin and his kite, and leave it pretty broad. Now, for the older kids or high schoolers, you might say something like, describe why Benjamin Franklin's invention made such an impact on the scientific community, or why it changed history, or something like that. What was significant about it? So you can make the question more difficult, but the bottom line is that the child is getting a piece of loose leaf paper, or it can be done in a spiral notebook. We use loose leaf so we can stick it all in this duotang folder, and they're writing something out. So then you're going to go ahead and keep that and stick it in this duotang folder. Another thing that goes in that folder is any copy work. So copy work would be verses that we're memorizing or poems that we're memorizing. It's pretty much memory work written out. So when we're doing that, they're going to write it out on a piece of loose leaf, and that's going to go in the binder too. Map work for geography. Our maps are printable, so whenever we do a map, we use these great maps from Map Trek. I'll leave a link in the show notes. They're wonderful. You can download the entire program onto your computer and then just print what you need. So after they do a map, that gets 3-hole punched and that gets put in the notebook as well. So anything they create, and the narrations, the written narrations, they don't just have to be a composition. So I'll give you an example. We studied the book of Genesis this past term. And if you've read Genesis, you know there are lots and lots of genealogies in the book. So we tracked, for example, Noah's family tree. And so we studied family trees this term too. And so on the board, I would write out, and we worked through it together, from Adam to Noah. And, we put some details and some dates. So that was their written narration for that day, is they wrote out all of the family tree. So that's something that would go in there too. So pretty much anything that they are writing that is part of like their group work. It's not independent work. It's not individual work. It's not like skill-based math or reading. Anything outside of that, you can use one Duotang folder or a binder to keep all of this information in. And then at the end of the school year, they've got this great record of, hey, these are some really great things I did. And my kids love at the end of the school year to flip back through those books and see everything they learned and, make comments on it. But that is a great way to keep all of that paper trail. Again, most of this probably is going to get tossed upon graduation, unless there's something that they really want to keep that you can transfer to the memory box. You can do that. But I keep these in their own bins, and I just stack them on top of each other year after year. And I keep them in a closet in the schoolroom, and I only bring them down at the end of the school year to put something new in it. So all the work examples, the best way I have found to store them is in a clear plastic bin. So I don't know what size it is, but it's the size that fits a Duotang folder or a notebook, or a math book. So it's going to be that size. And on the front of it, I just put a sticky note and I write the child's name and I say first grade hyphen. And then I see how much I can fill it. And let's say it fills up at fifth grade. Then I say first through fifth. And then I get a new bin. And I know if I need to look at any of their work examples from that time period, it's going to be in that bucket. So that's how we do work examples. Again, I encourage you to go back through and kind of, as you're adding new stuff at the end of this year, look back through some stuff that you saved before and you think, I don't know if we really needed to save that. We could probably do without that. Because another thing that you might want to save is going to be what your child studied. So depending on your curriculum, I know like if you use Ambleside Online or something that's like an all-in-one, Sunlight, I think does this, where they have the sheet for the whole year that says what you're studying. That would be good to keep. So I actually created a resource that hopefully I will be getting to you guys this summer. It's a planner, but within it has a page that says yearly overview. And then there's a box for each thing so you can see, okay, for history, what time period did we study? For math, what math book were they in? And you can mark all of that. And again, it's just one page for the whole year. So that might be more helpful to keep for you as the teacher, especially if you have younger kids coming up and you kind of want to see what you did with them at that age. But you can keep that in a separate folder, or you can just make a copy of that for each child and stick it in this work example folder. And then you can see, oh, when Bobby was in fifth grade, this is what we did. This is what he studied. Now, when you get into book lists, that's a little gray for me. I still haven't really found a side that I fall on, because most of me wants to write down every single book that we read. And so I have done that, and I've kept, I could go back and tell you what every picture book we read when the boys were in kindergarten. I don't know that I need that. I probably don't. I have since created book lists, and so now I can just reference, we used this book list this year. And then if I really need to, I can go look at it. But again, that's something I'm hanging on to it for now. Next year, I might go through and pull all of those, and they could end up in the burn pile, and then we don't have them anymore. But that's that's really up to you. But if you do want to save something like that, if your kids keep a book list of books that they read that year, that would be a great thing to go in the work examples. Or like family read alouds, you could say, this year we read Swiss Family Robinson and Peter Nimble and His Fantastic Eyes, and then or that might be for a term, then what family read alouds that you did. And again, a lot of that is good reference. If you have younger kids, then you can look and kind of gauge, okay, we read this at this age. I think the child's probably ready, or we might want to be doing this at this time. Okay, so that is work examples. And again, those go in the plastic bins, get stored, put aside. So you probably want a closet that you're going to make room for all of this in, because depending on how many kids you have, this could kind of add up. All right, and the last category. This is for my outside the box mamas. So if you have a child with a diagnosis, you have a lot of paperwork. I don't know how you're keeping it. You could probably fill a 2-inch binder. I know I have. You might have boxes and boxes of evaluations and progress reports and lists of biomedical therapy, and you could have IEPs if your child was in school at some point. So there is tons of paperwork that comes with having a child with a diagnosis. So I'm talking to you. This is how we have tamed that. I got a 2-inch binder, and I saved the following things: IEPs, evaluations, any types of progress reports. So if it's from a specific therapist, checkpoints, those types of things. A list of biomedical therapies that we were doing at the time. So if they were on certain supplements, what supplement was it, how the dosage of it, all of that. I would print one of those like monthly. Every month I would update one. And if you're doing a wonderful therapy like the Sunrise program, which if you listen to this podcast long enough, I'm going to mention it because I just love it. And if you have no idea what I'm talking about, there's quite a few episodes that explain what the Sunrise program is. So I will link to a couple of those. If you're doing something like that, they have the developmental model. And so you could be printing the child's developmental model and have that kind of clipped together and then put that in the binder, or keep it in a separate folder and then just tuck it in a pocket of this binder. I separate these by date. So you want to be able to read your child's journey like a book. Okay, so get those little sticky tabs from Target that are different colors and write, 2020 or whatever. And then every paper that goes in there from 2020 goes under that. And then in 2021, you're going to add a new sticky note. And so this is really great if you need to go back and reference something. If you can't remember that one time you went to that one gastro and where was that? You can at least flip through and say, well, I think it was at least 3 years ago. And then you'll have that information in there. You might also want to save in a folder. Now, this is only till the end of the year, like daily notes from different speech reports. Okay, like if you do have an occupational therapist, PT speech, if they give you notes like weekly or quarterly or whatever, you probably want to keep those. If your child is in school, you will get a packet called the Special Education Rights. You will get this at every IEP meeting. They are quite long. For years, we used this as drawing paper because I had 2 that I had IEP meetings for. And so you just need 1 copy of this. You probably don't even need that 1 copy, but this is something that, it's good to have. So that folder, maybe save for a year and then go ahead and burn those and just get something, see if your therapist can give you something about the progress over that year. Or again, if you're doing Sunrise, you're not going to really need any of that because your thing is going to be based on your developmental model. If you do consultations or anything like that, if there's a transcript or if you took notes, that's crucial. Please, if you're doing consultations, whether it's with a biomedical doctor or a Sunrise teacher or some other option that I don't know about. Take notes. Take very good notes and stick them in, because what I found is, life gets in the way. And when you kind of stop and think, hey, we never really, we didn't try those supplements, or we didn't look into that. And I flip back, I can see, oh, he said to take this supplement at this dosage or whatever. And then I don't have to contact the doctor again. I can just kind of go back and pick up where we left off. So make sure you're taking notes, because a lot of times those consultations, they can be very overwhelming, and you get a lot of information at once that is meant for you to feast on over a long period of time. So there's no way you're going to digest and do everything in one sitting from a consultation. Life is going to get in the way and take over. And speaking of consultations, if you don't know, I am doing consultations now. So if you have a struggle in your homeschool that is beyond a podcast or a blog post or a Google search, and you feel like, man, I really just need to talk about this specific situation with my specific child, and I really just want some one-on-one advice, I would love to help you with that. So I will put a link in the show notes to my consults page. You can book a consultation. I've got single sessions available, and then I've also got a deal, 3 sessions for a discounted price. Okay, so those are our 4 categories of papers we're going to keep. So you're going to have a nice condensed memory box. That's probably going to fit in one of those plastic bins as well, or a small file. And then you're going to have grades and attendance. That's going to fit in a duotang folder. So you could just stick this on top of your 3rd category, which is the work examples file. So that duotang folder could just sit on top of your most current work examples bin. And then the 4th one, if you do have an outside the box child, if you do have diagnosis and therapists and all those other things, just get a 2-inch binder and stick that in the closet, maybe on top of this box. And that is going to take up maybe a shelf in a closet, on a top shelf. That's where I keep mine. It's not going to take up a ton of space, and you are going to know where everything is at when you need it. And at the end of a school year, you can pull these boxes down and reminisce and look at how much your child's grown, and maybe have some special moments and share that with your child. And then you're also going to have everything there in case you ever need to reference it. And it's going to be all in one spot. Oh, and the very last thing I'm going to mention, because I forgot, also for the memory box, a cute idea that was real popular a few years ago, where people were taking the Dr. Seuss book, Oh, the Places You'll Go, and they were having, I think it was a dad had his daughter's teachers every single year that she was in school write her a note, almost like a yearbook, but it was her whole education. And then at her graduation party, he hands her this book, and it's words of encouragement and, just neat memories from her entire education. And I just thought that is the neatest idea. Now, if you homeschool, that will be sort of ridiculous for you to write your child a note every year. So I'm not talking about that. Well, I don't know. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's not ridiculous. You could write him a note every year. But I'm sure there are also other people in your child's lives, maybe play directors, maybe coaches, maybe dance teachers, church leaders, Sunday school teachers, youth pastors that they have a really strong bond with, babysitters. If you do the Sunrise program, if you have volunteers in your program, of somebody who helps you in your home. And this is a great way, whether you do it with that book or you do something else, to sort of have something nice, again, in a very condensed way, to give your child at the end of his graduation, sort of to celebrate him. And that's a good thing to add to the memory box. I hope this gives you an overview of what's important and what's worth keeping and what's okay to throw away. And this kind of gives you a broad view of being able to keep memories as well as the nuts and bolts kind of stuff when you are homeschooling your child. Thanks so much for listening to Homeschooling Outside the Box. If you are loving the show, please head over to iTunes and leave a review. This is a great way to help other moms just like you find encouragement in their homeschool with their outside-the-box child as well. For more encouragement, be sure to head to cindyrenna.com and you can check out some great blog posts as well as a shop that will help equip you on your homeschooling journey.